Welcome to episode 16 of the Creative Train podcast. In this episode, I'm going to dig into something that has been on the mind of every creative person at some point. And that is, can I turn my hobby into a business? Well, yes, you can. I've been doing it for 30 years now. What I'm going to do in this episode is give you some real-world experiences I've had, the good and the bad. Maybe help you refine your thoughts. All aboard? So, you're branching out into self-employment or thinking about it. Or maybe you've been researching how to attract more clients to your already existing business. Or maybe you've seen those ads on social media that seem eerily targeted to you, given your age and your likely career ennui. Or maybe you've checked out one of those ads, you know, the shiny people in their private jet wearing their shiny clothes, talking about their rags to riches journey to having a 7-figure income with little to no investment, or it's all done in their sleep. Any of this resonating with you? I kind of thought it would. If you find yourself at the point where self-employment becomes a tantalizing option as your vision exceeds the hobby level of your art or craft, and you start to imagine yourself working on your own terms, I want to run a few things by you that I've discovered, not only about client interactions, but also about myself and what it means to be in business for yourself. I'm sure a lot of this will be very common knowledge if you've been in the self-employed category for some time now. If you're at that tipping point where you're considering abandoning the 9-to-5 world for that of your art and craft and seem to find yourself spinning in circles wondering how and what to do, I'm going to share some of my experiences. The good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly. And maybe this will help you focus yourself a little bit better. As I've said in previous episodes, I'm a musician. I am also a music teacher, a DJ, stained glass artist, and I've been playing in bands professionally since the early 1990s. Back then, it was not a glamorous life as a musician, but the income was sustaining, and I would go as far as to say it was profitable. And having had a taste of that immediately following my graduating from college, I knew there was nothing else I wanted to do. Nothing else I could ever really put my heart into and look forward to doing every day. And nothing else I would rather get up for each morning in anticipation of the day's work. I did have a few day jobs in that time, you know, the 9-to-5s. For a few years, I worked in the forestry industry and did jobs like cutting red pine in reforested areas. You know, the ones they use for telephone poles and electrical poles. I also ran a course teaching proper felling and skidding techniques to high school students, and even did some basic cutting for lot clearing. And to this day, the chainsaw is still one of my top 2 favorite power tools. All the while doing these jobs, I still taught music in the evenings and gigged either solo or with various bands, and I did hundreds of DJ events like weddings and corporate parties. It was, at the time, ideal for me and my family. I could more or less make my own hours, and the income was enough that the occasional day off never really had any negative impact at the month's end. But priorities and desires shifted, and I drifted away from the logging industry to migrate more fully to music, which is where I've been now, full-time, for more than 30 years. It's funny, people will ask me all the time when we talk about work stuff. They'll say like, no, but what's your real job? They don't expect anyone to actually make a living doing something that they see as a curiosity or little more than a hobby. But here we are. We are not the plenty. We are certainly not the richest, but we are happy and never once regret a single day of having to go to work. So, back to this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 major things to consider about self-employment in the arts specifically, and give the pros and cons of each of them. Some of these things might seem pretty obvious to you if you've been in the game for a while, and some of them might be a total surprise if you've only ever found yourself working for someone else, be it a company or for another self-employed person or small business, or as an independent contractor within an organization. First off is the relationships which can and will develop between yourself and your clients. And even a bit deeper than that, of creating a community within a community of like-minded others built around your business. Your business might be the brick and mortar type, like an actual store in a building, or it may be a virtual business. But you and your skills and talents will inevitably draw people to you, and the relationships and eventual community that forms around your business are very strong. Especially potent is having an online presence. Now, this can be a super strong community if you have forums or meetups as part of your engagement. There are tons of options for this, and I don't really need to spell all of that out to you. I think we've all been around the proverbial social media block enough by now to know what we like and how we like to engage. And this kind of thing can snowball in a very small amount of time if your engagement is regular and actually engaging. The in-person type of community is wonderful. You'll get to meet so many wonderful people who are genuinely interested in what you do. And having the ability to offer them one-on-one interactions with you is one of the first really big steps in establishing a lasting relationship. Even if these folks don't have a purchase in mind, they might just drop into your place and you can talk shop for a while. Do not underestimate how your clients perceive and anticipate your interactions with them. Often, your clients will view you as someone with a skill set or experience that they too wish to foster or grow in themselves. And it means a lot to them to be able to spend even a few minutes with you. Even if it's talking about something you saw on TV last night. Your thoughts on those things are going to help shape your clients' views as well, because they have a certain level of admiration for you. When someone sees something in someone else that they admire, they will seek to either emulate it, to try to gain that same experience or skill, and they will hold an idealized version of you in their mind as the business person, as something they wish to see grow in themselves. Maybe you're a baker, clothing designer, musician, pottery maker, or auto mechanic, whatever it is that you do. Those who seek you out do so with a certain level of questioning or need and are reaching out to you as a person who can solve that problem or help fill that need. Always take it seriously, even if you feel like they might just be one of those tire kickers. Treat them as if they're a friend, and you will earn a customer. And then the downside to building all these great relationships. This comes in the form of when the client perceives the relationship to be something they can gain an advantage in, or maybe take advantage of your kindness or generosity and use it for their advantage. In my own experience, I've made some very solid relationships, which started as business relationships, but have developed into decades-long friendships, and I am really very grateful for that. If you're one of those folks in my life, thank you. But you knew the but was coming. That sounded kind of gross, but anyway. One real-life example I have from my own experience is with the operation of a small recording studio that I have in my home. For the most part, I built the space for making my own recordings, but other solo artists and people who collaborate online are welcome here as well. It's very functional. The space works very well, and of course, there is my vibe factor, which is very key to me. For a while, I had a client coming in, and we would track their demos, finish these pieces off sometimes, and do some video work, and I would help them write their new pieces on occasion. And this went on for a year or so. And then suddenly, they had less and less money to pay me for my time. They asked for more and more things to be done unpaid on my own time, as they call it, since the studio's in my home and I don't actually have to pay anyone to do the work, right? Eventually, I had to deliver the ultimatum of clearing up the payments for services already given before I would do anything further. This eventually did happen. And then one day, a few months later, they asked about coming over to track a new demo. And I said, sure. At the end of the session, this person actually had the nerve to tell me that if I could show them how to operate all the software, let them use my guitars and other instruments, and get this, they could use my studio to do all their work, and I could just go about my business at home, and they wouldn't have to pay me to operate the gear, play the extra parts, do all the grunt work like edits, mixing, mastering, creating social media posts. It would save them so much money, and I could just have more free time at home. Let that sink in a bit. Say you're in any other business, and a customer asks you to let them use your stuff so they can do the work themselves, because basically your skills and expertise are too expensive, but they really like your tools and stuff. What I came back with was, I said I'd make him a list of all the things you need to get started up with your own home recording rig, from brands to gear options and even sources to acquire them. I'll even hook it up and show you how to use it in your studio space. Then you can truly work freely and not have to worry about paying anyone to simply just push buttons for you. I made the list, helped them out one afternoon, and I haven't seen them in well over a year now. So there are lines which will sometimes be crossed between the working professional relationship and the personal one, in which things like favors and just being a pal become the currency of your exchange. Now, I do this with certain people without hesitation, because I know our relationship is built on more than just convenience. Often with my musician friends, we'll swap gear, speaker sets, lights, whatever for a night or two, loan an instrument, or even a car or truck if needed. And we do this because we know without a doubt that our efforts will be recompensed whenever we need. And I suppose that's a slippery slope that business owners will all find themselves on at some point. And that is of being vigilant to not be taken advantage of by good guys. You want to run and grow your business as best as possible, but you also have to make it sustainable. And that's the thing with stuff in the arts, is people don't see it as a viable career. They see it as an expensive hobby. So, moving along. The next biggie is how you allocate and spend your time during the workday, and also your, quote, time off, which is a really funny thing to say to a self-employed person, because we all know there isn't really such a thing as time off. But when you're working on basically your own schedule, you can do lots of things in between clients and customers and meetings and stuff. You could go to the gym in the middle of the day. You can go home for lunch. You can stay in your sweatpants and old t-shirt if you're working from home. And maybe if you're lucky, you can stay up late and sleep in way later past when most people are already at work. The last two are my personal faves, since I've always been a night owl. And with my music teaching schedule, I don't often have to leave my house till around 2 o'clock. So I have the luxury of being able to do those things, and some of my other favorite things like cooking or just throwing sticks for the dogs. But believe me, every spare second is spent on coming up with budgeting options, lesson plans, taking courses to improve my own business abilities, bookwork, gear maintenance, and the list goes on. When you're self-employed, you don't have anyone to do all those things for you. There is no HR department, no finance or payroll department, no maintenance department, no advertising department. All these things become your responsibility every day, every week. Every month end is your task to draw to a close. Every year end too. And all this while still opening your doors with a smile on your face and a sunny outlook on business and life, so you don't crash and burn inside of 2 months. Yeah, try that on for size. So taking a hobby, which has proven to be profitable and business worthy, to a new level by making it an actual official business is both exciting and terrifying. And it's totally worth it though, because you will eventually grow into it. You'll figure out how to do those things and hopefully establish some routines for them so they don't seem like inconveniences or get forgotten in a flurry of other tasks. I started teaching music in a private studio 1 day a week and had 4 students. The extra cash was nice, and I was learning a lot about personal dynamics, teaching methods, and a little bit about how to manage a business. This was before the internet was really a thing, and definitely before social media. So all of my advertising was by word of mouth, thankfully, handing out business cards. And I even took out an ad in the services section at the back of the local newspaper. In time, the business grew, and I grew as a person, as a teacher, as a musician, and also as a business manager. Within 3 years, I was no longer a 9-to-5er and fully on my own, doing anything and everything to do with music, from performance to teaching to production to live sound and recording. There were a lot of personal sacrifices along the way to do with not having as much time for family stuff at times, and a lot of long, restless nights when finances got really tight, and the growing responsibility of trying to be what my clients came to me to be for them. A reliable professional who can either do for them or teach them what they want. You have to have thought about this if you're on the cusp of diving into self-employment. And I know you have done something like this already if you are doing the thing already. And that is making a workspace. Now that your big idea is taking form, where are you going to do it? Having or making space in your home is probably one of the biggest and best things you can do for yourself as a creator and also for the health of your business. Even if it is as seemingly small as having your computer desk set up in such a way that you don't have to keep packing stuff up and out of the way for non-business related things. The fact that you dedicate the function of a space to your business not only makes getting down to work easier, but it also legitimizes your efforts and makes your business not only feel like a thing, but a place as well. To be able to walk into my home studio, the audio studio, turn on a few switches, get some interesting lighting going on, and be able to turn around and see all my guitars hanging on the wall, clean and waiting for me to use them, is a huge advantage from back in the day when I had to pack all my stuff up and out of the way during home renos and stuff. I touched on this in episodes 10 and 14 of this podcast, and to spare you the details of that now, go check those out if you haven't. Maybe your workspace needs to be super quiet. Maybe you're going to be loud or messy. Maybe you need great ventilation or places to safely store things the kids can't get into. Whatever it is and wherever it is, making a space for your work is so key. I have a friend who's a great painter and is also an amazing jewelry maker. And the first time I went to her studio, which was in her apartment, I felt right at home. She had every inch of her apartment dedicated to some kind of creative task. Canvases standing in order of the painting's progression, totes on wheels, totes on shelves, tools and bins and supplies, all squirreled away with intent and precision enough that she could find things even in the dark if she needed. This was truly an environment created by a creative person for creative function, and it was really inspiring. Where some folks might feel off-put that there was no real dining room or china cabinet, there were just as many paints in the kitchen as plates and utensils. Everything, though, was neat, organized, and had a purpose for being where it was. Having a business concept is one thing. Having a business model is another thing. Having a business that is thriving and growing is another thing altogether, though. But if your business can be run from your home studio, or even a desktop computer, and you find a way to make a dedicated space for that business to be run from, you will be doing yourself a huge favor by making even the smallest effort to make a business/workspace happen. So what do you think? Is this enough to push you one way or the other? Are you going to dive in? Creative people are hardly ever satisfied with doing just one thing. But as long as they are doing the thing, they're usually okay to get along with. An unproductive artist is a grumpy artist, and that's a for sure. You don't have to pull the plug on your non-artistic career immediately, or maybe even ever. But bringing your art, your craft, your skills to market for sale is, as I said, a wonderful and terrifying thing, and it is totally worth it. There's your pep talk. Now go get to work. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, folks. I suppose the big takeaway from this would be to how to feel legitimized as an artist, as a working artist. You make your space, you build your environment, whatever it is that you do, you build your relationships, and you stand strong with those things. Everything that you can do to feel empowered as an artist, because it's really, really, really hard to make a living as an artist. But it's only impossible if you never try. Get to work.